So as brilliant, you did say. So as Sina said, my name is Sophie O'Callaghan, and I'm the Senior KTP Manager at the University of Exeter. So a very, very quick introduction. My background's actually in sustainability and environmental management, but I joined the team, came back to Exeter about 7 years ago, and I've been running the KTP Knowledge Transfer Partnership Scheme at Exeter ever since. So the University of Exeter is based in the southwest of England. We've got campuses in Devon and Cornwall. We're part of the Russell Group, so we're a research-intensive university, but we really love working with industry and partners. We focus on research activities that support a clean, healthy, fair and just future. And we've got a new strategy really focusing on those areas. And we have a really diverse array of expertise and excellence in a breadth of subjects. So climate science, data science, mining, humanities, sports science, biosciences. We've got a medical school, a business school, a teaching school. So we sort of are a bit of a one-stop shop. And my talk today is going to be very focused on the Exeter offering because it's what I know. And also it's going to be very focused on the UK university sector because again, it's what I know. But I'm really hoping that what I'm going to say today is going to be very applicable to you in whatever industry or organisation you're working for, and also in whatever country you're working in. I think a lot of these principles are very transferable. And just to kind of explain the logo on my slides, Extra Innovation. Oh, I need to turn my laser pointer on. So we are, there you go. We are the business facing arm of the University of Exeter. So I'll talk a bit in my talk about knowledge exchange professionals and who we are and what we do. But that's kind of the business brand for the University of Exeter. So today in my talk, I'm going to talk about what we call knowledge exchange, which is kind of our formal term for interacting with business collaborations. So what it is, how you can benefit from it, why do we do it as universities? And I'm kind of trying to hope to give you a bit of an understanding of where we're coming from in sort of knowing your partner when you're approaching these collaborations. We'll talk a bit about the barriers, about the facilitators. So that's these us, the KE professionals, some practical tips for you to help you get the most out of your collaborations and the conversations that you're having that lead to those collaborations. We'll talk about the mechanisms, KTP as a specific type of mechanism because that's what I do. And then there'll be time at the end to ask any questions that you might have. So to start off with, why would you want to work with a university? So there's a number of reasons. Obviously, the topic of this meeting is called de-risking your innovation. So reducing the cost and the risk to your organisation through that support and that funding that you can access through a university is obviously a really, really key part of what motivates our partners to work with us. So yeah, sharing the R&D, sharing the IP and gaining access to those internal and external funds. Obviously, new ideas and horizon scanning. We're a university, we're working at the cutting edge. The technologies we're dealing with, the concepts we're dealing with are, 10, 20 years away from the general practice. And so it's great for businesses to be able to access that and identify the new trends in their area. Skills development and training is a really big part of what we do, and also working with the university can help you to access the graduates, that talent, and bring that into your organisation. Obviously, there's building a reputation through association, and I know lots of the companies I work with, they've got big badges that they're working with the University of Exeter and support that in their other endeavours. And then finally, access to new networks and new connections. And there's so much going on in so many different universities. It's really nebulous and lots of serendipity involved there. So I wanted to share this slide, which is from I can't remember what NCUB now stands for, but I can look it up for you if you need to know. So basically saying this is where businesses look if they want to do innovation. And you'll notice that universities are right down the bottom. So it maybe doesn't occur to people initially that the skills, the expertise, the talent I need is in a university. But again, that's what these knowledge exchange professionals are here for. So working with the university, it can be a bit of a leap in the dark. There's a lot of an unknown. It's not like buying a kitchen where you look at a brochure and you know what you're going to get after a bit of disruption. It's more like deciding to have a baby or getting a puppy, where the value to you in the university really often only becomes evident after quite a long time, a few years of working together. And those long-lasting relationships are really where we get the most value. So what drives universities and what are we here for? So obviously, education, pretty obvious. Research, developing new knowledge, improving society that way. So that's two legs of our three-legged stool. There's also this kind of vaguely defined third leg as to what we're here for and what we're here to do. So is it social responsibility? Is it knowledge exchange? Is it commercialization? Is it the regional impact, the national impact, the benefits to the economy that we have? I've put the word vortex in there because universities have a really, really important regional role to play. They create jobs, they generate new talent in their region, and the idea is that they kind of they draw in all of that good stuff to their region. So yeah, this kind of nebulous, undefined third leg is also what we're here for, and I think that's where the knowledge exchange space sits in.
Could we just ask everyone to mute their microphones? So if you are online, if you could mute your microphones, that would be great. Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you. So what is knowledge exchange? So it's a collaborative, creative endeavour that translates knowledge and research into impact in society and the economy. So that's kind of the global definition. And you'll notice I've got three acronyms there. So there's technology transfer. That's like the old catch-all phrase for what we now call knowledge exchange. And that was basically universities, the old-fashioned approach saying, we've got some really good stuff, we've got some really good knowledge, patents, IP, and we're going to try and sell that and make some money. That was basically what we used to do. Then we moved into knowledge transfer, which was our kind of 90s, 2000s term, which was saying, hey, we've also got some knowledge that you guys could use to improve your organizations, and we're going to transfer that to you. Now, the modern term, and I like this because I think it really does show how the industry, and we have our own industry body, we have a trade association, Praxis Oral, has really evolved over the years, that it's now knowledge exchange. And it really recognises that it's a two-way street. So obviously, organisations and industry have a lot to learn from universities, but we've got a lot to learn from you. And we really benefit from working with people in the real world. It makes the research better. To put it succinctly. And so as a result, knowledge exchange is now a core part of university strategy. So this is just a screenshot from the Universities UK website saying that universities are key to driving economic growth, and that those knowledge exchange activities, that's the bit I've highlighted here, are really at the heart of this activity. Okay, so for the next bit, I wanted to talk about what drives universities. So where we're coming from, how we're measured, and I think it's useful context for you to help you to understand your potential partner in a collaboration. So we're measured and ranked in various ways. So you've probably seen things like the Times Higher Education paper, the Guardian University rankings, and that's where we're all striving to get into the top 10 and to be the big players in those rankings. Less well known are three metrics, and they are called the REF, the KEF, and the TEF. So first we had the REF. This is the Research Excellence Framework. So this is the UK system for assessing the quality of research in UK higher education institutions, and that runs on a 5-year cycle. Maybe it's 8, according to that thing. I thought it's 5. It's very important to us. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in universities to gather the evidence to demonstrate the quality of our research. So we're obviously incentivized through this to do impactful research, and that knowledge exchange supports that impactful research. And this actually, for universities, determines the grant that we get from the central government to do research. So then we've got the Teaching Excellence Framework, the TEF. So this is an important measure for us for attracting students, obviously, because if you've got a high quality of teaching, that's attractive. They want a good experience, they want to learn. And it also affects how much we can charge for our student fees. So you have to have a good ranking in the TEF in the UK to be able to charge those higher rate tuition fees. And so obviously that is a measure of how well we teach. And I think we're gold in Exeter. We're very high. And then recently, we've now got the knowledge exchange framework. So this is come in the past 5 years. Again, it's that recognition of the evolution of the sector and the importance of this work to the economy. So again, we get a government grant to support our knowledge exchange activity. It's actually how I'm paid for, and my director at Extra Innovation. A lot of our work is paid for through that grant. And this is relatively new, so we're all getting used to it, but we are anticipating that our performance in this metric is going to determine that grant too. So again, there's a lot of work going on in universities to complete returns for these key metrics. And they're, aside from just doing the right thing, these are underlying drivers for some of the work that goes on. And finally, very important, the UK uni sector in particular is going through a period of change and instability. We will always want to be a force for good, and we're always going to do interesting research, and the good work will always be done. But we've had a change to our funding model over the years, and there's more instability in the environment in which we operate, and that's increasing our drive to generate revenue from different sources. We've always utilised the return from our knowledge exchange activities to support the wider institution. Universities do bring in money in lots of different ways, but there is now pressure on most universities, certainly in the UK, to continue to diversify that income and generate more income from their knowledge exchange activities. Okay, so furthermore, in helping you to understand where we're coming from, you're probably kind of aware that in universities we have quite complex cultures, and we also have lots of regulatory and governance. We have quite a high burden that we deal with, especially when it comes to that interface between industry and academia. So we operate as a charity, for example. So we have regulations around how we can treat our surplus and our profit. There is a culture of openness in universities and also a culture of challenge, healthy academic challenge. It can be quite difficult to get things done in universities as a result, and there's a lot of bureaucracy. It also can cause issues when we're working with businesses who might want to be confidential, who might want to keep the work that we're doing, the research that we're doing, keep their cards close to their chest, to use a phrase. Again, I'll talk about this a bit later, but this is where these knowledge exchange professionals come in helping to manage this. We have to abide by open procurement processes. In the UK and Europe, we have state aid rules, meaning we can't just give away stuff for free. If it's going to give you a competitive advantage, you have to pay for it. Obviously, we've got ethical considerations on who we work with, anti-collusion, fraud, bribery, all that kind of stuff. We also have to abide by trade rules, export sanctions. And the last point I've got about dual use applications. So this is quite a recent example. I'm not sure if you can see from the photo, but it's one of those robot dogs. I find them absolutely terrifying anyway. There was one walking around the expo where I met Zena a couple of months ago. Essentially, this is a government that has gotten a hold of one of these and stuck a gun on it. Now, this came from a private company. It's not an example of university research, but it is an example of what we need to consider when we're developing our collaborations and looking at the technologies, the work that we're doing together, and considering, could this be used not for good, because we don't want to go down into that space. So that's what that dual use applications is. And that's all really important things to think about, but it does add to the bureaucracy behind what we're doing. And there certainly is a perception that universities can be quite slow. We are, compared to industry, but it's for good reasons. And again, we're not that slow. It's one of the myths I want to talk about. Right. And then the academic perspective. So I feel like I've hardly talked about academics yet, and I think I'm 15 slides in. So I've just screenshotted this little cartoon because I think it really, really sums up how academics feel. So one of the myths I wanted to bust is that they're not good at working with business. It's simply not true. Obviously, you've got some people that are just pure research and they're really not interested in talking to anyone. They just want to, do what they do. But most of the people I work with are absolutely fantastic at working with businesses and collaborating. And certainly in most modern universities, it's part of their academic career pathway. So they need to demonstrate that they're undertaking this activity. They need to demonstrate income generation through these activities to support their promotions and their route to professorships. And for them, it's interesting, it's challenging, it pushes their research in a new direction, it helps to ensure that their research is valid in the real world. I always say, if you're a data scientist, you need data to work with. And where are you going to get that data from? Collaborations. And there's a lot of support from within universities to kind of help academics to do this and to help them to develop the skills as well to be able to do this successfully. So there's a lot behind them, but they do have a lot of pressure on their time. And it does mean that not all academics can be engaged in this agenda, even if they want to. And also, even if they do want to, they might not be properly recognised for their work. Most of the really successful collaborations I see involve an academic going completely above and beyond and running themselves ragged to make it work. But my impression is that kind of is an academic career. You're being pulled in three directions. You've got to teach, you've got to do research, you've got to publish, and you've got to work with industry now. And it's certainly not a career pathway that I would choose, but they seem to love it. So. And then when you get to professor, you can be this. Don't tell me what to do. Okay. So thinking about knowledge exchange then and what it is and how it works. I've got this really good slide about I think it's percentage of respondents saying, how they interacted with universities. And really the point I wanted to make showing you this is that it's very complex and it takes many different forms. And it's like, if the shoe fits, that's what we'll do. And I like this breakdown because it's showing, it can be people-based, it can be problem-solving based, community-based, and then there's maybe what's kind of traditional knowledge exchange activities, which is that licensing, spin-outs, and using academic publications. So there's a real breadth and diversity to what we do. And there are multiple pathways into working with universities, and this from the outside can be extremely complex and confusing. So although we have offerings and packages, the solution that you need is probably a bespoke one. So this is very old flowchart that we used to use in our directorate for training. I've deliberately left it too blurry to read because it's out of date. But it shows the complexity of the service offering that we have for working with businesses, and that probably what you need, as I said, isn't a package. It's probably, after some lengthy conversations, something bespoke, and hopefully some external funding to support that for you. And there's barriers. There's further barriers beyond just the complexity and the complicatedness and the fact that the academics don't have time and that they're pulled in all these different directions. And this is from the business perspective, so what they've said. And working in this field, obviously talking to businesses all the time, I really see this one. So we can have great projects that we want to do, but the organisation just doesn't have time to support them. We're all pulled in so many directions, and that nice to do project can be really, really hard to prioritize, even if you could see the benefits. Difficulty identifying university partners, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Not being able to see the benefits from interacting, lack of funding to pay for the interaction. So that's hopefully something that we can help with to kind of access the funds to do it. I mentioned about bureaucracy and inflexibility of the university. It's a perception based on truth, but I don't think it's that bad. Some universities are better than others. And I think timescales links into that with kind of those differing expectations. And that's where that cultural differences idea comes in as well. And then there's some further ones that I don't really have a comment on. Lack of interest by researchers. It's not my experience at Exeter. Businesses being inexperienced at working with universities. Yes, everyone has to start somewhere, but there's a team of professionals out there to kind of guide you through this. And then difficulty on agreeing on IP. Again, it's not my experience, but I can understand why that is a barrier for some people. I've lost my mouse. There we go. And another barrier is that we can be on different ends of the TRL scale. So I'm going to explain this. So it means technology readiness levels, if you've not come across this term before. And essentially, it's if we were to follow the development of an idea through initial concept, through prototyping, doing the underlying fundamental research to kind of prove the concept, developing a prototype, testing the prototype, taking it to market, and then having a commercial product out there in the market that's making you some money. That kind of sums up those technology readiness levels of 1 to 9. It's quite a commonly used phrase in my sphere. So universities, we tend to work here in these early stages, that fundamental research, and businesses tend to work closer to the market because they're trying to make money usually. And that means that when we interact, there can be a bit of a valley of death in the middle where we are trying to make it work, but it's very difficult. Or is it an island of indifference? So how do we make it work? I hope you've kind of got from what I've sprinkled in, it's a people business, and I believe that very strongly. And I think this quote from an unnamed senior industry manager is absolutely fantastic at summing it up. So collaborations with universities usually start with personal connections that lead to a combination of things. The brand is no guarantee of a good project. There are very clever people who find it very difficult to work with industry. So it's about the individual relationship and just how much they get it, i.e. how motivated people are to work with us, which is very different, I'm going to paraphrase, from the usual academic research work. So you've got to find the right people. And I've got another quote from Vivek Wadhwa, who's a US innovator and investor. And he says, start by knocking on the University Business Services front door. And I can point you in the direction of one. Some of these offices are really competent and will help you analyze their portfolio of expertise and discoveries. They'll take the time to explain the value and help you shape your thinking. They will connect you with inventors, and experts may even team you up with other entrepreneurs and potential investors. Unfortunately, most are staffed by lawyers and bureaucrats whose purpose in life is to squeeze every dime out of a potential partner while protecting their butts, just in case they ask too little and the partner gets rich. Again, not my experience, but that's his experience. And it's really valid to say, you know, it does happen. And when you're looking for a university and you're talking to them, you do need to be scoping them out and seeing if you think they are going to be a good partner to work with. And if you can't get past those initial contracting, those initial interest stages, if it is taking weeks and months, maybe look somewhere else, because it could be that things are bogged down. And then finding the right people, part 2. So like with any business development, you need to go where you think the people that you want to talk to will be. So the chances are there are people like me at trade events and industry networks trying to find you. And they'll be looking to match businesses with keen academics. And it could even be that the academics themselves are there to kind of make those connections. So, you know, where I've said, where are they? Conferences, trade shows, industry networks, regional events. Innovate UK Business Connect, I think, really needs a shout out for the UK. So they put on a lot of industry specific events. For example, we were quite heavily attended one on metamaterials at the Business Design Centre in London recently. And that was great for us for connecting us with businesses interested in working for that space. You know, they turned up because they were looking for universities to work with. The universities with expertise and academics in that space were there with stands. It was a great matchmaking event. You've also got virtual networks. So again, Confer, Konfer, is really one that I need to highlight. So that is funded by NCUB, which I still can't remember what that stands for, and the research councils in England. And that is essentially a matchmaking service. So you can go in, you can put in keywords, you can search for what you're looking for, and it will try to connect you with the right academic and the right university. Obviously, like with Finding Anyone, you've got LinkedIn. I'm going to highlight Business Connect again. That's Innovate UK, because they have dedicated managers in different industry sectors whose job it is to connect you with the knowledge that you need to progress your business. So make use of them because they are out there and they're easily searchable on the website. And then finally, obviously, you've got your industry networks, which are going to be fantastic sources of understanding who's good to work with, if they're happy to share. So, and then obviously you can just search online. So, you know, academic profiles, we're working quite hard with our academic profiles so that the keyword search terms through Google, that search engine optimization is a lot better. You can also search Google Scholar, and you can read the abstract of academic papers for free. And this will tell you who the authors are, and usually it will have their contact details, or at least it will tell you which university they work for, so you can go and look them up and contact them directly. But I would say, you know, this KE offices, I keep saying it, but if in doubt, contact either a university that you know, your local university, or after that quick keyword search, a university that seems to have the right expertise for you. They in all likelihood, they will have an office that's dedicated to supporting you, and they will be able to connect you and guide you down the right path. And then when you're starting those conversations, apologies for the text-heavy slide, these are the sort of questions that we'll be looking to ask you in those initial fact-finding, relationship-building discussions. So be prepared for some open sandbox style questions and thoughts. Often my experience is that the problem or opportunity that a company comes to me with isn't actually the project that we've then gone on to do. Sometimes the first project is easily solved, and we found something of much greater value and much more interesting that we can do together. So I will just run through this list. So, you know, what are your big challenges and opportunities? Because that's where the opportunities lie. What maybe you're seeking knowledge or skills. So what are those knowledge and skills? Have you come to the right place? Are you looking to recruit new talent from researchers or graduates? Or do you need an expert in the field already? Or do you need business support? Because that's something that universities offer as well. And for example, Exeter connected into Set Squared, which is a regional collaboration to just drive business growth in the area. You need to think about who needs to be involved. So that's the right people within your organisation. You need to have decision makers, people that can allocate resource. You need to have technical people, if it's technical knowledge, that can receive that knowledge and actually continue to put it to use and embed it in the organisation. We do a lot of collaborative research and development with multiple partners involved. So do you need to bring a partner in? Have you got someone in your supply chain, either a customer or a supplier who is going to benefit from being involved with you? You know, maybe if your issue is on one particular thing and you've got one particular supplier and you have that kind of relationship with them, bring them into the collaboration. If you can be clear on budget, that really helps us. Unfortunately, as much as we would like to, we can't work for free. There's a very limited amount that we can do on a small budget. So knowing sort of where you stand there will really help to facilitate those conversations. Timelines as well. If you need it now, let us know. We can move quickly if we have to. At the same time, if we're talking about a long-term strategic project, obviously then that opens up a lot more doors for us for potential routes for a collaboration. You also need to think about your IP position. Have you got IP that you're particularly keen to protect? And I'll just skip a slide and say, you know, also, is what you're doing sensitive? Is there an element of secrecy involved? Do we need an NDA right from the start? You know, if you can come to us knowing those things, it helps to facilitate all of the conversations. And then jumping back, talking about previous funding. So just, it's useful for us to know actually, because it helps us to understand which funders are interested in you as an organisation, if you've already been working with them, whether you've got experience of doing this in the past. You know, like I'm quite used to holding people's hands through the KTP funding process. So how much do I need to do that? Or are you already quite advanced and you know how Innovate UK think, and I don't need to tell you that. Also to make sure there's no overlap, because obviously you can't be funded twice from public funding to do the same project. And then finally, due diligence. So we will, from a financial and ethical perspective, do due diligence on all of our potential partners. So we will be looking at your financial standing, your reputation, your ownership, any legal restrictions, trade sanctions. So any information about especially finances is something that we might be asking you for. And then finally, if we're talking about placements, so KTPs or studentships or internships, we might be trying to gauge how suitable you are for that. So that's all part of developing that working relationship. And then in terms of the mechanisms, so I've just done a bit of a word cloud on kind of all the different mechanisms that, and this is just me brain dumping. So what I'm going to talk about is very Exeter focused and very UK focused, as I said at the top of the presentation. Other universities and countries will no doubt have different offerings and different ways of doing things. I think it's really important to say there's no one size fits all solution. And the process of developing that collaboration and the mechanism that we select together is very much determined by the circumstances, what it is that you want to do, and the funding available. So to repeat myself, the important thing is to find the right people and know what you want to do. And the University Knowledge Exchange Office and the academics will be able to help guide you to the right mechanism that fits the collaboration that you're proposing. And I really think it's important to start there with what it is that you want to do, what's the knowledge, who are the people, and then the mechanism sort of arises from that naturally. But some that I would like to highlight, KTP, which I'll talk about in my next slide, studentships. So this is obviously basically supporting someone to do a PhD in a topic that you've chosen. We call them industrially funded studentships at Exeter. And there's often sort of 50-50 match funding available from the faculty to support those, because we really love doing those. Consultancy. So if we know the answer, you can just come to us and we can tell you the answer. There's research and development. So we can do research. So if we don't know the answer, you can pay us to find it out. Or we can work together on collaborative research and development. That's probably the bulk of what we do. And that is the area that attracts the most external funding. So the UK Research Councils, Innovate UK, that's where they're funding the really, really interesting cutting edge stuff at the moment. I wanted to highlight the IAAs. So these are Impact Accelerator accounts. These are small pots of money to foster collaborations, to support impact from within a university and an external partner. So these are usually pots of like £5,000 to £30,000. And they're a really good way to kickstart a relationship. So just to work on a small project together, prove a concept, test an idea, test the relationship, and deliver like a quick win together. And it's a great mechanism to do that, and then hopefully move on to a deeper collaboration as a result of that. So yeah, at Exeter, we've got impact acceleration accounts and the Open Innovation Fund. I think most universities have something similar, some sort of seed funding to kind of help kickstart collaboration. You also might want to develop your people. So we have continual professional development, that's in there somewhere, and executive education. So, you know, Exeter, we're very proud of our MBA, particularly our One Planet MBA, which is heavily sustainability focused. And we can also develop bespoke packages to support your organisation. Degree apprenticeships fall into that as well. So in the UK, lots of organisations already have to pay a degree apprenticeship levy, so they can utilise that funding they're already paying out and use that to bring new skills in and essentially have subsidised degrees for their staff or new staff to do. And again, Exeter's a bit of a leader on degree apprenticeships. We've got all sorts of different subjects that we teach for that. And then finally, there's maybe what came to mind immediately when you thought about working with the university. So we've got student projects, internships. We have something called a graduate business placement, which is where companies will advertise a year-long kind of development pathway job that one of our graduates can do, and they're quite successful. We actually have a lot of those in our directorate to kind of help develop new talent and bring them on. There's only a few slides to go, I promise. So I said I'd talk about KTP as an example mechanism. So I'll quickly run through what KTPs are, knowledge transfer partnerships. So these are collaborative academic and industrial projects that ultimately are about transferring academic knowledge into a business to drive growth and profit. They've been running for over 50 years, and I think they're a very well kept secret. There's 812 projects live in the UK at the moment. So again, a very well kept secret because there's a lot of good innovation going on. And at Exeter, we've got 12 projects, mostly in data science and engineering, and we always aspire to have about 20 at any one time. So these projects are part funded, usually by Innovate UK, but other research councils do fund. And Innovate UK will fund either 2/3 or 50% of the total project costs. So if you are looking to collaborate with the university and your project fits the bill, it's probably one of the best value ways that you can interact with the university. And most universities offer KTP. We all love doing them. They tick so many boxes for us. They're different from kind of a standard R&D collaboration because they are facilitated by a high caliber graduate. They're recruited jointly between the university and the business, but they sit within the company and feel like part of the company team. And they are solely employed to deliver this strategic project that's going to drive change within the organisation. They focus on bringing new capabilities into the business. So it's about impact and growth. And the projects are very commercially focused. So we have to write a business case as part of the application. So when that TRL scale, you know, we're talking at TRL 8 or 9, things that are going to be out in the market and making you profit. So they last between 1 and 3 years. KTP associate is jointly recruited, so we take on all the employment risk, and the academic team that's attached to the project. So it will always be 2 academics that have got the knowledge that you need. They will commit half a day a week to the project, and that's mostly spent supervising that KTP associate who's going to be the conduit between the 2 organisations to transfer that knowledge and deliver that innovation. So why would you want to do them? You can embed new capabilities and expertise, exploit new opportunities, improve performance, profit, productivity. They're a great recruitment opportunity. So because we recruit this person together and they're a technical expert in their field, the project's typically 2 years. You can kind of treat it like a 2-year job interview and test that person out, use the budgets that we've got to shape and mold them into what you need to be. And then hopefully at the end of a successful project, you have shaped them into a future leader within your organisation who's going to continue to develop the thread that we've started through the collaboration. So, for example, I know Penny Hydraulics did one around developing cranes for the nuclear industry. So they made cranes, they wanted to get into nuclear decommissioning. So they started a KTP project to help them to develop those ways of working, to work in the nuclear industry and meet those standards. The KTP associate that they hired, an engineer, to do that project, 15 years later, is now their director of nuclear engineering, and it's one of the most profit generating centres within the business. So that was a really big success. And as I mentioned before, these projects are part funded by government, so you're benefiting from that support to de-risk your innovation. And I've got a slide in there about timescales, and I think this is applicable to lots of different types of collaboration. So you're going to meet with us, scope out what it is that you want to do, put some thoughts to paper. With KTPs, we meet with a regional representative and we get their support to go to the full application, and then we work up the application and submit it to the funder. And that means for KTPs, because there's a bit of work pre-award, we have a 95% success rate. So we're doing this work pretty certain that we're going to get the funding out the end of it. And then jointly we will recruit someone and start the project together. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. So I just wanted to sum up. Obviously, we've talked about what knowledge exchange is, how you can benefit, where we're coming from as a university and why we do it, what the barriers are, these knowledge exchange professionals who are the facilitators. We've gone over some practical tips to kind of support you in approaching a university, looked at the different mechanisms, focused on KTP. And that's me, unless there's any questions. Thank you very much.